part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
We are pleased to welcome, as part of this particular podcast, Brian Anderson, the former pitcher, Major League pitcher. We are talking to him tonight about Game 3 of the 2001 World Series, one of the epic games in World Series history, as much for what occurred before it as what occurred during it. And Brian Anderson was the starting pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks that night in Yankee Stadium against Roger Clemens. B.A., thank you for taking the time with us. I first want to ask you, when did you know that you were going to get the Game 3 start?
Oh, that's what was really interesting. Listen, Dennis, my last start of the regular season was September the 8th. And so I hadn't started in a while. I'd been pitching out of the bullpen. I had pitched out of the bullpen a couple of times in the division series that we had against the St. Louis Cardinals, pitched out of the bullpen in the NLCS against the Atlanta Braves. And I had thrown the ball well, but I wasn't completely stretched out. And, I was kind of getting myself comfortable in my role, pitching out of the bullpen in the playoffs. And, we had beaten the Atlanta Braves in the NLCS in 5 games. So we knocked them out 4-1. And we had 5 or 6 days off before we were going to have to play the New York Yankees in Game 1 of the World Series. And I can remember, one of our workouts at Bank One Ballpark, and I'm standing out in left center field, shagging, for all the hitters and, doing my thing out there. And Bob Brenly is making his rounds, talking to all the different guys on the team. And he had come up to me, and I thought was a couple other players. And we started chit-chatting. And Bob looked at me and he said, how do you feel about starting Game 3 of the World Series? And my initial reaction was I looked over my left shoulder, like, you got to be talking to someone else. I haven't started a game in almost 7 weeks. I haven't gone over 100 pitches since July. You can't be talking to me about starting, a World Series game. And sure enough, he was talking to me. I was super excited. I said, are you kidding me? I would love to. And so that's how things, got started on that end. It was a complete surprise. Wasn't expecting it, but maybe because of the fact that it was Yankee Stadium, and you'd like to start lefties in Yankee Stadium because of the short porch in right field, and on top of the fact that I had pitched pretty well in the playoffs up to that point, and had some postseason experience with the Indians of, ironically enough, of all teams at the highest level. Maybe that was where the decision was made, but I certainly did not expect it coming down the road.
All right, BA. So we know that the 2001 World Series, the entire 2001 postseason, is taking place after 9/11, very soon after 9/11. And that's what makes this game so historic. The series opens in Arizona, and you guys win both games. Is it correct then that the first time you visited New York City since 9/11 was the day before your start in Game 3? Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was. So, Bob, comes to me and we just talked about it starting Game 3. Well, we win Game 1, 9-1. Schilling does a great job, whatever. We win Game 2 behind Randy Johnson, shut him out 4-0. And now we're going to Yankee Stadium. And so, how the World Series works. 2 games, for us, it was at home. Then you got a day off. 3 games in New York, day off. And then the final 2 games of the series, if need be. So after those first two games, we fly to New York City. Of course, the Yankees had played in New York after 9/11, but this was going to obviously be the first World Series game in New York after 9/11. With everything the country was going through, we had gotten in the day before, and they gave us the option that we could go down to ground zero. And I don't want to say take a tour like we were tourists, but we could go down there, visit the first responders, visit the police captains, the fire captains, the people on the front lines, show them our respects, pay them our respects, and see something that we probably will never see again, hopefully, and never can unsee. And most of our team went down there. I can tell you that it was emotional. It was overwhelming. It was, you just cannot put into words the destruction. We were right down there in the middle of it. I've seen all the pictures over the years of Ground Zero, and I can promise you that I have seen things that never made it into any of those national photos that everybody else has seen. It was surreal. It was disgusting. It was unbelievable. I don't know how to really describe it, but we all went down there. Most of us went down there, and we experienced that. And the interesting thing about it is you're going down there to see things that you never wanted to see. You'll never be able to unsee. You hope that you never see again. And you're in the middle of the World Series where you're trying to win a championship. It was just strange all around. It was.
And BA.
Yes.
With that in mind, with what you just said in mind, did you have second thoughts about going down there saying, I'll come back another time because I am the starter for Game 3? Did that enter your mind at all when you were wondering when you were deciding it?
No,
okay.
Dennis, not for 1 second. Some things are bigger than a game, and I was prepared for my start, and I would continue to prepare for my start in Game 3. That was not going to stop me from going down there and supporting not only my teammates that were going down there, but our country, and just paying respects, just going down there, and I don't know, being paying your respects to the first responders, experiencing that, I don't know how to describe it, experiencing, going down there and just being with your teammates in that, World Series, the focus of the world, baseball world, and really I guess the world at that point was on New York City, and just going down there to support a lot of different people that were outside of you. I never thought for 2 seconds of not showing up and going down there. I had done my work preparing for the game. I knew what was at stake as far as my performance, but some things are bigger than that performance, and that was one day that was.
All right, so we move ahead to the day of the game, and obviously, as you pointed out, the first World Series game post 9/11 in New York City, and just try to give us a feel for what it was like to get to the ballpark, the level of security. Just try to describe that as you got. Once you got to the ballpark, what did you see? What did you have to go through?
It's funny. On the day that I start, if perfect world, my a few full seasons of starts, I'd get 32 starts a year, 162 game schedule, 32 starts. So on the day that I started, I wanted to get to the ballpark as early as I could. Just get there early, get into that bunker mentality, team mentality. That was the only time that you were going to be able to pitch for the next 5 or 6 days. And so that was my mindset. And that didn't change, in that World Series. So I got to the ballpark, those World Series games, they start at 8:15 at night. And I got to the ballpark early. I was probably there by 1:00, and getting through security at that point was pretty easy. You're a player, you're on the team bus, you slide through security. The fans aren't anywhere near being there. And so, I got in early, and that was just the way that I approached it, because I wanted to get in there. This is my one day, like I said, to perform. And so I wanted to get there early and get locked in. And that's what I did. And it's funny because I don't know how many cups of coffee. They had a video room. I shouldn't even say a video room. It was there in the middle of the clubhouse, but they had a couch, and they had a TV, and you could put in different DVDs. It's not like it is today where you jump on Netflix or Hulu or anything else to bring up a movie. You had to put in a DVD. And I sat there. I drank a ton of coffee. I watched Hoosiers. I watched Rudy, inspirational sports movies, because I knew this was more than likely the last time that I was going to pitch in that season. And I also knew what was at stake. I mean, we were up 2-0. And you're going into New York City, playing the New York Yankees. First World Series game after 9/11 that we've already talked about. They cannot afford to lose game 3. They can't be down 3-0. So you knew you were going to get their absolute best shot in the world. They have to beat you in game 3. They have to beat you in game 3. And at the same time, you're facing, like I said, 9/11, first World Series game. The crowd is going to be out of their minds. President George W. Bush is throwing out the first pitch. And you're going to face off with Roger Clemens. So you know that your work is cut out for you. You better be prepared. You better be locked in mentally, and you better be ready to go.
Yeah, it's speaking of George W. Bush. When did you know what was going to happen with George Bush, and what did they tell you about the protocols and how that was going to unfold?
You know what? I knew coming in that was obviously something that had the potential to happen. There were no protocols on my end. Now, I can't speak for the rest of the team, and I can't speak for our clubhouse. I was focused on pitching that night's game and getting myself ready to go out there and do what I can do to help lead us to a win. So there were no protocols on my end. I do remember vividly after the fact missing the whole thing, because as George W. Bush came out to throw that first pitch, I was warming up down the bullpen. And I had bigger fish to fry, and I had bigger, I had things on my plate that I needed to take care of. First of all, it was getting myself ready to go and being sharp enough to go out there and help my team win. And that's what I was working on down the bullpen. And so when he came out to throw that first pitch, while you could sense the crowd and obviously their reaction, because they were all about it, there's no question about it. They were all about it. I was warming up, getting ready for the game. So I missed all of it. I missed the whole thing.
You didn't even stop yourself. You didn't even stop yourself to say, I just want to take a look to see how it goes.
No, not for 1 second. Not for 1 second.
Wow.
I had a job to do that night. I literally had a job to do that night. And it's funny that you asked that question in the manner that you did, because I guess at the end of the day, if I would have paused to just take that in, it probably would not have affected my performance at the end of the day. But at the time, I was so focused on getting ready for that game that it didn't matter what was going on around me. I was focused on the game. And I, wow. I don't want to say unfortunately, but I missed that. I missed that because I had a job to do. I had, my team needed me to go out there and give it my best. And I owed that to them. And so I was not going to let anything distract me. Looking back on it, would it have made as big a difference? Probably not. But at the time, it was about me getting ready. And you know what? Enjoy that moment, everybody else. I got a game to go out there and try and win.
That's awesome.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary.
And I'm Jason. Opening cards as a kid, no matter what was in the pack, you always had that stick of chewing gum. Well, it turns out Gary and I opened up a box of 86 Tops last year, and let me tell you, the chewing gum does not age well.
Join us on the Ball Card Show,
The sports podcast for the sports collector.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
All right, so Clemens comes out. Obviously, the home team pitcher is out there first, and you know the place is completely rocking. Your level, give me your level of nerves. Let's say while you were watching the movies, drinking the coffee in the pregame clubhouse, and then while you were on the mound in warm-ups, and then you know, as game got closer, were the nerves just through the roof, or did you manage to tame them, or how did that go?
Yeah, a lot of nerves. No question, a lot of nerves. Not that you're scared. That's not the right word. You're just anxious. You want to get things underway. I've always told people that as a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball, if the game was at 7:00, from 6 to 7 was the worst time. Because you had mentally prepared, you had physically prepared, you're ready to go. You hit 6:00, you're ready to, and you look and you're like, another hour before this game starts. It's the anxiety. It's just like, I want to go now. You know, put me on the mound, get a batter in there, and let's go. So that was more for me than anything else, was the anxiousness of getting things going. And like I said, I hadn't started in 7 weeks, 7+ weeks. I hadn't thrown as many as 90 pitches in a game since the end of August. You know, I pitched primarily out of the bullpen for the last month and a half, 2 months of the season. Had some good appearances coming out of the bullpen in the playoffs. And now you get to that, okay, I'm going to start. I don't know what my limit is. I don't know where they have put my pitch count at. I just knew that I had to give everything that I had in every single pitch. And I remember going out there to start the bottom of the first inning against Chuck Knobloch. And I threw the first pitch of the game. And I don't even remember strike, ball, foul ball. It doesn't matter. I just remember throwing the first pitch of the game. And all of a sudden it felt like just a game. Now, no question what was at stake and the pressure there. This is baseball. And so every pitch that I threw that night, knowing that it was probably going to be my last outing of the season, I tried to put everything I had into every pitch. But it just became a max out effort type of game. Here it is. Pick the pitch, pick the location, and execute it as best you can against a really good lineup who was desperate for a win. And that's kind of how things started for me in that bottom of the first inning.
If I had been in your position, if I had been good enough to be a major league pitcher, there is no way I would have been able to go out there. I would have been in complete panic. My nerves would have been so bad. My legs would have turned into jelly. I don't know how you go out on the mound in the boogie down.
Dennis, you're time out. You are 100% wrong, because you're thinking of it as someone who's never done it. And you know what? And that makes sense. Well, you think about those big moments and you go, my gosh, I don't know if I would have been able to perform. But it's what you did. It's what that was your job. Now, yes, it was a big moment, and I've never been in a big moment like that. But guess what? I pitched a lot of big league games, and I pitched in a lot of, big games, and I pitched in a lot of playoff games. And so you would have done just fine. You absolutely would have done just fine. It's just when you're sitting back thinking about it from the cheap seats, you go, wow, how do they do that? Listen, it happens to me when I watch guys in other sports. I'm like, man, what a big deal. What a big deal. But at that time, that was my job. That was what I was supposed to do. That was what I was trained to do. That's what I prepared to do. And so, when the bell struck and it was time to go, then it was time to go. Now, I will say this, looking back on it all these years later, you think to yourself, wow, that was a whole lot bigger than I thought it was at the time. But at the time, that's what I was just trained to do.
Yeah.
Looking back, it becomes a bigger deal. I think about that when I was pitching for the Indians in the playoffs. And the games that I had gone into, whether it be Game 6 against the Orioles in 1997, tie game, bottom of the 10th, or whether it's bottom of the 9th against the Florida Marlins down in Miami. And I think about those games now, and I think, boy, if I would have screwed those two games up, could I even live in Northeast Ohio anymore? I don't know. It would be tough. It would be tough. But at the time, there was no fear. There was no fear. Go and do your job. You've been here before. You go in and do your job. Make your pitch. You're going to get the guy out. I look back on it 20 plus years later and think, boy, if that didn't go well, I doubt that Northeast Ohio is my home right now, because I don't know if I'd be welcome.
Right. Bottom first, by the way, Knobloch pops to short. You get Jeeps, you strike him out looking, but then left on left, Paul O'Neill singles to shallow left, it looks like here on the play-by-play. I don't remember that particular hit. You gave up a steal to Paul O'Neill, which is hard to believe. Bernie ball.
You talk about catching a guy by surprise. I paid him no mind because, the thing is, as a left-handed pitcher, I had full control of the running game. One of the things that I loved about, getting into the National League and under Buck Showalter and learning, a good pickoff move from Mark Langston was I wasn't overpowering. I wasn't going to blow you away with big strikeout numbers, and I wasn't going to hit 100 miles an hour, but I would try to limit the damage as best I could. And one way that I could do that was I limited the running game. I was a lefty. I had a built-in advantage, and I had a really good pickoff move to first base. And so I limited the running game. So the fact that he was able to swipe that bag was me getting mentally lazy. I'm thinking 2 outs. Paul O'Neill, big guy. It's funny because I run into Paul, all the time now doing the color analyst job for the Tampa Bay Rays, and he does a lot of games for the Yankees. We come across each other all the time, and he still lives in Cincinnati. He's a great human being. I love Paul O'Neill. But yeah, the fact that he swiped that bag, he was like, I know that he's not paying any attention to me, and I'm going to go. And that's just me getting mentally lazy.
Yeah.
Like, he's not going anywhere. I got bigger fish to fry, and off he goes.
The bigger fish was Bernie Baseball, Bernie Williams. You wind up walking him. So right out of the chute, you're in a jam, and you get Tino Martinez to fly out to center. Now, my baseball reference play-by-play says deep center field. I don't remember the swing, but do you remember it? And did you fear it might be gone when it left the bat?
I didn't fear that it would be gone when it left the bat, but I knew that it was better hit than I would have hoped for. And yes, it was deeper in the outfield than you would have liked. Steve Finley made a nice play on it, and we were able to get out of that inning. Tino Martinez, it's funny. I run into him from time to time, down in Tampa, obviously doing the Rays games, and he still lives down there. He was a heck of a hitter. He had a lot of success against me. Not even just, obviously that game, but over his career. But I do remember that ball coming off the bat, and I thought, I hope that we're positioned properly. I don't think that's going to leave the yard, but I hope someone can get to it. And thankfully, Steve Finley was able to do just that. But yeah, Tino Martinez was a very, very dangerous hitter.
Bottom of the second, right out of the chute, Jorge Posada, the switch hitter, takes you deep for a home run. What was the pitch or what happened? Oh, it's full count, 7th pitch of the AB.
Yep. It was a full count, and I babied him a changeup. And when I say babied him a changeup, it's the whole thing about a changeup, a split finger, all of those types of pitches. It's all about your arm action. It's all about your arm speed. You have to sell it. You have to throw it like it's a fastball. And a hitter's mind says, quick arm, I got to go quick. And then it's off speed, and they're a little bit out in front, and they either swing and miss, depending on the action of the pitch, or it's off the end of the bat, and you get them out. And I babied him a changeup, which means because it was a full count, I'm trying to throw a strike. And instead of trusting my mechanics, I try to throw a strike. Instead of just throwing it with good arm action, I try to slow my arm a little bit to make sure that pitch will end up in the strike zone. And when you do that, a good hitter, they will, it's crazy as it sounds, the little bit of less arm action and arm speed they pick up on. It's crazy. And I babied it, and he picked up on it, and he destroyed it as well he should. That was my fault.
All right, so we go to top four. So it's 1-0 Yankees entering the top of the fourth. Matty Williams sack fly after he drives in Louis Gonzalez, Finley, because Finley had led off with a walk. But the bottom line is through 3 innings, Clemens is throwing peas. You're matching him. Did you at any point not just in the early innings, but your entire start, did you say to yourself, hey, I'm facing Clemens here, I have to be even better than normal? Or is that one of those cases where you just can't worry about who you're pitching against?
Yes. I knew going in, and we had hit on this before, but I knew that their backs were against the wall. They were down 2-0. They're playing game 3 at home. They have to win that game. If they fall down 3-0, it's over. I mean, it's over probably quick. And so you knew that they needed that game. I know in the back of my mind, I'm facing Clemens. I'm not pitching against Roger. I'm pitching against our lineup. But I know what's at stake, and I know that my margin for error is small. I mean, that he's going to come out and he's going to pull a Roger Clemens. He's gonna do what he does. And he's one of the best pitchers that this game has ever seen. And so you know what you're up against, and your margin for error is slim. And so you go out there and just make sure that you're prepared, and you try to pitch accordingly. So to be able to tie him up, like we did, It was unfortunate because I think we had bases loaded with just one out. And you're thinking, boy, gosh, a base hit, a lead, you get a chance for a big inning there. Bases loaded, one out. You get a sac fly, you tie the game. Okay, fair enough. At least you got one in and you tied it up. And let's move on from there. But you know that your work's been cut out for you because of the quality of pitcher that he is.
Yeah, it went Finley walk, Gonzalez single, Reggie Sanders fly out, Finley to third, and then Rubio Durazo with a walk, then Matty Williams with the sac fly, and Mark Grace ground out to end the threat.
Yep.
And it was a 1-1 after that. We go all the way to the sixth, and I mean, it's a pitcher's duel, full-on pitcher's duel. Northeast Ohio's own BA against Roger Clemens. And bottom six, it looks like here you gave up an infield single to Bernie Baseball to short. And then you got Tino on a fly ball to deep right. Eventually you walk Jorge Posada. And then Morgan comes in to face pinch hitter David Justice. Justice strikes out, but Brocious singles off Morgan to give up your second run. So you only gave up one run that was not inherited. What was the sixth inning like? Were you expecting to get the hook when you did?
Let's rewind to the bottom of the fourth. I've thrown a lot of innings in Major League Baseball, whether it be regular season, whether it be postseason. The bottom of the fourth inning in that type of game with what was at stake was something that I've never experienced before. And I'll get to the sixth, but
wait,
I had
let me quickly set the scene. I see it right here. Tino Martinez grounder.
Yep.
Jorge Posada ground out. Shane Spencer walk. Brocious reached on an error. Alfonso Soriano error 2 on a foul ball, and then continued the AB with a fly ball to center. And the key, I think, here is the pitch count. It went 2, 3, 7, 1, 5, 13. So if I'm reading this right, is it possible it's 13 pitches total to Soriano or 18?
No, 13.
It would be 13.
It was a 13 pitch at bat. The thing that was interesting about it, okay, so 2-out walk to Spencer, run around first, 2 outs.
Okay.
Brocious hits and I'm not even talking about anything remotely difficult for anybody above high school. It was just one of those plays, a routine ground ball to short, and it got booted. It happens. We're human beings. Guys make mistakes. But it was a routine ground ball to short, error. So now first and second. Alfonso Soriano comes up. First and second, 2 outs, 4 or 5 pitches in. He hits a pop-up right above home plate. And Mark Grace at first base converges. Here comes Damian Miller, our catcher. I'm kind of like, I'm not even really directing traffic because I'm like, these two guys are veteran guys. Somebody's going to make a play. Let me just stay out of the way. There's 2 outs. So contact, runners are running. And the ball, the pop-up, falls in fair territory up the first baseline between obviously home and first, between Damian Miller and Mark Grace. Thankfully, nobody touched it, but the ball falls into play fair and it spins foul. Foul ball. Foul ball because it didn't make it past the bag.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Shane Spencer had already crossed home plate. So it was like, no way. So we had a 2-out walk, an error on a routine ground ball at short, and then we just had that pop-up that almost hit a glove after it hit into fair territory, but it spun foul, and it ends up being a foul ball. And then 8 pitches later, I was able to end up getting him out. But that inning, boy, you talk about taking a toll between the 2 errors, the walk, that was my fault. The fact that they could have added on to their lead if someone would have scraped that ball. That was a tough inning. That was a tough inning to deal with. And that was one of the craziest innings I've ever dealt with because of the walk, the error, the misplay, the 13 pitch at bat. And then all of a sudden it's over. And it's like, wow, I'm exhausted. Thank goodness they didn't score.
Yeah, I mean, you had it exactly right. It was the 5th pitch against Soriano was the one that was popped up, and it was error charged to Damian Miller. And then 8 pitches later was the Soriano fly ball to center. So you had to work. You earned your money on that in that inning, but you escaped without a run allowed. So we moved to the 6th, and by the time you got to after you had walked Posada, did you think that was going to be it?
You know what? I did. I shouldn't say that. I didn't at the time. I look back on it now, and it makes perfect sense. But that whole game, the margin for error was very, very thin. And, obviously we are tied up 1-1 through 5. We go into the top of the 6th inning. And it's very interesting how this game turned out because Reggie Sanders got hit by a pitch with 2 outs in the top of the 6th. And then he steals second. And then, he's on second base. It's still a tie game. Rubio Durazo hits a ball to the right side. And it's a base hit, and it's going into right field, which means with 2 outs and Reggie Sanders running on contact, we're about to take a 2-1 lead. Chuck Knobloch dives, or maybe it was Alfonso Soriano. Yeah, Soriano maybe. Dives into shallow right field, and he gloves the ground ball by Durazo to keep it from going to right field. If it goes to right field, Reggie Sanders scores. We're up 2-1 in the top of the 6th. He ends up flagging that ball down, and he keeps a Rubio Durazo. Yes, he gets a single, but he kept the ball from getting to the outfield. He kept Reggie Sanders at third base. And then with Reggie at third, a Rubio at first, Matt Williams hits a line drive to left field, and Shane Spencer charges the line drive. He dives straight in towards the infield and gloves it. And it was an amazing play, back to back. The play by Soriano at second base to keep the ball from going into right field. We would have had the lead. And then the great play by Shane Spencer on the line drive to left field. And all of that is over, and it's still a tie game. And then you go into the bottom of the 6th, like you said. And so, I gave up a infield base hit to Bernie Williams. End up getting an out. And then I walked Posada. And at that point, first and second, 1 out, tie game, bottom of 6. I didn't realize it at the time, but my pitch count was higher than any pitch count that I had had since like June or July that year. And I hadn't started a game in almost 2 months. So they just kind of let me go because obviously I was being effective enough to stay on the field. So at the time, I hated coming out of that game. I think if you have any video of me coming off the field and in the dugout after getting pulled from that game, you would understand that because I lost my mind. I thought I'd let my team down, only going 5 in the 3rd innings. But looking back on it, I completely understand why the move was made.
Yeah, 107 pitches. But that's the thing. I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like, as you heard me say a little earlier in this podcast, that old jelly legs me could never have made it out to the mound, let alone thrown a pitch. But I can't even imagine what it's like to face the Yankees at any time of the year in Yankee Stadium, let alone in a World Series game. I mean, that lineup with that kind of power and all the dynamic nature to their lineup, to me, it's like 107 pitches in 5 1/3 against the Yankees is like 107 pitches in 9 innings against most teams. Because the Yankees are notorious for the opposition, but for them, it's famous. They're famous for working the count and spoiling pitches, spitting on stuff that's an inch off the plate, getting some calls every once in a while. I mean, so I would think you would have racked up 107 pitches and not even realized it was triple digits at that point.
Yeah. There's no question about it. I remember that, thinking back on that game, I felt like the way to approach that game, I was extraordinarily well prepared. It's funny because Randy Johnson had procured from me, and I had my own, obviously, scouting report on the Yankees, but he had procured for me some notes from Jamie Moyer. Jamie Moyer, obviously, he was not a overpowering pitcher, left-handed finesse guy, much like myself. And I got some notes from Jamie Moyer. And so the thought was, I'm going to throw every pitch of tonight's game. I'm going to, I've game planned it out. I know how I want to attack these guys. I also know that things can change, game situations, all of these different things. However, at the end of the day, every pitch, I'm going to throw it like it's my last pitch of the season. Max effort all the way through. That's just the way it's going to go. Whether that's 70 pitches, 100 pitches, 107, whatever the number is. I found out, interestingly enough, after that game was over, that they had, because I hadn't started a game in over 7 weeks, and I hadn't gone as many as 90 pitches since the end of August, that I was going to be capped at 75 to 80 pitches. I didn't know that going into the start. Obviously, they're not going to tell you that. But that was my cap, 75 to 80 pitches. But yet they let me go 107. So there's part of me that feels like, okay, I was doing pretty good. If they were going to go that many pitches past what my max was, I must have been showing them something. But for me, every pitch that I threw, I felt like, make it like it's the last pitch of your season. Don't hold anything back.
Yeah.
And don't try to pace yourself. Empty the tank. The season's coming to an end. You may not see the field again, and a World Series championship is at stake. So empty the tank and give it all you have on every pitch. And when they come and get you, they come and get you. And that's what happened.
Well, Game 3 also featuring former Indian Greg Swindell, that pitches the last inning in the third, 1 hit, 1 strikeout. So 3 pitchers for the D-backs, B.A., Mike Morgan, and Greg Swindell. A really good start considering everything. 8 innings, 7 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 3 Ks. But you run into the two-headed monster of Clemens and Rivera. 9 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, 13 strikeouts. I mean, you would have had to have basically been perfect in order to win the game. So you wind up losing 2-1. Just quickly before we get to we wrap up the series, because we know you guys won the series 4-3. But what was it like in the clubhouse after the game? Besides quiet, I mean, what were your emotions like when you were, sitting there trying to process what had taken place?
I was disappointed. It's funny because the game nowadays, the way that it's played today, you get a starter that goes 5 or 5 1/3 innings and they're celebrating, and you got 15 or 16 outs. Like the game is different. Back then, I went 5 1/3 innings, even though I hadn't started the game in a couple of months, and I felt like I had let my team down. I felt like I had not gotten enough outs, that I had not done enough to win that game. And then to have lost 2-1, even though we were up in the 2-1, it was extremely disappointing. And I felt like I had let everybody down. And you know, it was tough. It was tough for me. And because I knew that was probably the last time that I was going to pitch in that season. And so to have lost that game, it was extremely difficult. It was difficult. Now, as a baseball player, you understand it's an everyday game, so you've got to be able to bounce back the next night. But I wasn't going to be able to bounce back the next night. My time was done, and so I just I felt awful, and I felt like I had let our guys down. I knew that I had given it my all. I knew that I had left everything out on the field, and I wasn't going to be ashamed of my effort, but I didn't like the outcome. And so that was tough.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Powell, co-host of the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast. Check us out anywhere you listen to podcasts. For all your Browns coverage, post-game, pre-game, anything you need Browns, you'll find it here on the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast.
This is Mike Voorhees, co-host of the Swingin' a Tribe MLB podcast. If you love Cleveland Indians baseball, then this is the pod for you. We've got you covered each week as we talk about all the games, breaking news, trades, the roster, all things Tribe. You're going to love it. Go Tribe.
All right. Well, the good news, BA, for you and the D-backs is that you lose game 3, then 4 and 5 are awful, actually, news, because young Kim gives up the blown saves and back-to-back, and you're all of a sudden you're down 3-2 because you lost 4 and 5 in extra innings, but you come back in 6 and 7 and win it in 7. Louis Gonzalez walks off the series with a bloop over Jeter to drive in. Was it Womack or Council? I can't. Jay Bell. Yeah, right. Jay Bell.
Yeah,
that's your winner, 4-3. So give us a little insight into the celebration of the Game 7 victory so that we can appreciate the mosaic of that entire World Series.
I'll tell you what, man. So you go into Game 7, and we had, of course, like you said, I lost my game 2-1. We lost in disheartening fashion in Game 6, and we lay a 15-2 win on Andy Pettit, of all people, who was so good, you know, obviously through his career, but in the postseason too. And so now you go into Game 7, and you've got a tie game, and Curt Schilling is your horse. He's the guy you want on the mound in that point, and he gives up a Soriano home run. I think it was in the top of the 8th inning, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And to lead off the top of the 8th, and that gives them a 2-1 lead. And so then you go to the bottom of the 8th inning.
Yes, and, you are right. You are right. Top 8, home run by Soriano.
Yeah, home run by Soriano. Now they're up 2-1, and guess what? We've been around long enough. Mariano Rivera was not a one-pitch or a 1-inning pitcher. If Joe Torre needed 2 innings out of him, he'd get 2 innings out. And so you knew that home run left the bat, Soriano, they go up 2-1. And because it's Game 7, every available pitcher on the roster, we are out in the bullpen, all hands on deck. You don't know who's going to get called, but everybody has to be ready. So you've got a room full of pitchers. You've got the entire bullpen. You've got myself, Randy Johnson, Miguel Batista. You got every pitcher available down there together. The home run gets hit, and it's like, uh-oh, because we know in the bottom of the 8th, here comes Mariano Rivera for the bottom of the 8th and the bottom of the 9th. They're not going to mess around. And they didn't. And he came in, and I think in the bottom of the 8th inning, he punched out 2. We got a base runner somehow.
He gets Louis, struck out Louis, struck out Matty Williams, singled to Finley, struck out Danny Batista. So he strikes out the side around a single to Finley.
Yeah.
And then, the ninth inning starts.
He made it look pretty easy. And so then Randy is going to pitch the ninth, and he does.
1, 2, 3.
That's great. And then you go to the bottom of the ninth, and Mark Grace up the middle, base hit, pinch runner, bunt. Mariano makes a bad throw to second. And now you got runners at first and second with nobody out. And you're thinking we got a chance because the leadoff hit was huge. The misplay on the bunt, and you're like, okay, guys, we got to capitalize. Jay Bell lays down a bunt, but it's easy enough for Rivera to field and throw the runner out third. And by the way, if Scott Brocious would have been a little bit more on point, they had a chance to double Jay Bell up at first base. They could have gotten a double play out of that. They didn't.
That's right. They took the out and they let it go. And then at that point, I think it was funny because Womack.
Yeah, Tony Womack was very good at pulling his hands in tight to his body on balls that were close to him. And we knew that Rivera was going to attack him with that cutter in, try to jam him. But we're like, Rivera, Tony is so good at pulling his hands in. And so you had hope. And he threw him a cutter, and Tony was able to lift that ball down the right field line. And Midre Cummings, who had come in as a pinch runner, scored to tie it. And there were runners at second and third with just one out. And then, of course, Mariano Rivera, who is going to try to cut the ball in and really saw a guy off. He cuts one in. He hits Craig Counsell. That loads the bases. And that, of course, brings up Luis Gonzalez. And, of course, he comes through because the Yankees have to pull the infield in. They don't have any choice in that situation. But it all started with the Mark Grace base hit. It all started with the Mark Grace base hit. Run around, nobody out. And now you can do some things. A mistake by Rivera. You're able to capitalize on it. And we end up coming home and winning that game. I can remember running out of the bullpen towards the pitcher's mound. And I have told people to this day, if you would have had a clock on me from the bullpen fence to the pitcher's mound, I would have played at any Division I football school in the country because my 40-yard dash would have been off the charts. That's how fast I was moving. It was that exciting.
Yeah, I remember Mark Grace saying afterwards, by hook or by crook, he said, I knew I had to get on base no matter what. And it wasn't the prettiest of singles, but it didn't matter because it was, it was in there. And and here's the thing I want the listeners of this podcast to recognize. Brian Anderson, as a lot of athletes are, but especially BA, a very smart guy, doing all this from memory while I have my baseball reference play-by-play up. And your memory is like 99% spot on. I mean, it's incredible how much you remember, but when you live it like that, I guess it burned into your brain. But afterwards, I mean, the fact that you beat the Yankees in this particular World Series, just in the final few minutes we have, and thank you so much for taking the time, BA, on this pod, just try to summarize the 2001 World Series, the celebration. But even when you step back and you think about that World Series, what comes to mind first?
Oh, just gosh, there's a lot of things. I think that bottom of the ninth inning in Arizona. I think about that more than anything else. That was just something that didn't look like it was going to happen, obviously, because Mariano Rivera and the Yankees, and they were a dynasty. That comes to mind, obviously, because that's what won the series. The 3 games in New York come to mind. You go there, and my game, I guess, was the most normal. I got beat 2-1 by Roger Clemens. Okay. That happens. He's unbelievable. But then game 4 and game 5, 2-run homers by Tino Martinez and Scott Brocious with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning to tie the game. And then to lose both of them, in extras, it's like, what just happened? And then obviously, like I said, game 7, I will tell you this. This is what's interesting. So we win the World Series and we're going to have a celebration in downtown Phoenix. And we had, like I said, most of the team had gone down to ground zero, that day before game 3 against the Yankees. We had at least 7 guys, me included, that when the series was over were extremely sick. Like, I remember making the World Series parade. I was miserable, but I made it. I didn't get out of bed in Phoenix for a week. And I know that I had 6 or 7 teammates, the same thing. Being down there at ground zero, it was one of the craziest things ever. When I talk about, we're down there looking at things that you never want to see or unsee. You'll never unsee and you never wanted to see. But there were different colors of smoke coming up from the ground, green, orange, yellow. You couldn't even imagine it. And the smell and all of this stuff. And you think about all those first responders that had to deal with this stuff. And then you fast forward a week from that, and you think about all of us on the Arizona team that got sick. I was so sick with some chest deal when that series was over that, like I said, I made the parade, but any celebration after that in Phoenix, nope, I didn't get out of bed for a week. I was miserable. And I know that I had many teammates the same way. And we all look at each other and say, that had to be from the crap that we were breathing in down there at ground zero. I mean, that's really what everybody's thought was. There were too many of us. It was too coincidental. And so that's another thing that kind of stands out. Like, it was crazy. It was just a crazy time in this country. It was a crazy series. Thankfully, we came out on top. But, geez, there's a lot that goes through your mind when you start to reflect on 2001.
Yeah, and you guys, when you compared notes on your sicknesses, you guys all said that it's just everything's too coincidental for it to be anything but getting sick from those fumes. But also the smell. Was the jet fuel smell still very much pungent at that, even almost 2 months removed?
You know what? It wasn't the smell per se. It was just the stuff coming up from the ground. I can remember talking to one of the fire chiefs that were down there, and they said that the stuff that is underground and burning, they're like, it'll be another month before this smoke goes away. And we're like, this happened September 11th. This is end of October. You're talking end of November, beginning of December. You just have no idea the destruction and the lasting destruction. And when you hear about these first responders, that have had health and physical issues working down there on site years later, and I don't doubt it for a second. We were down there for a few hours, at the end of October. And I know that I felt the effects, and I know that I had teammates feel the effects. I mean, there was no question. We didn't all get sick with the same thing and it not be something. I mean, it was crazy. Like I said, there were different colors of smoke coming up from the ground that they could do nothing about. They were just trying to manage it amongst all of the destruction, which you can't even, I don't even want to describe it. You can't even imagine what we were able to see. It was incredible.
Wow. Well, BA, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. As awesome as I could have expected it to be. And thank you so much for taking part in this series. And we will definitely be in touch going forward.
Dennis, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It brings back a lot of memories and fun to relive it at the end of the day because we won it.
I hear you, BA. Thank you so much, my friend.
All right, bud. Take care.